Are you thinking about buying a country property in Chatham-Kent for the space and the quiet? Let's just stop for a second. So, when a lot of people think about a country property, they fall in love with the lifestyle, the land, the peace and quiet, and the privacy. But one thing they don't really think about is the infrastructure. Because when you're buying a home in the country, you're not just buying the house, you're actually buying the water system, you're buying your own sewage system, and in many cases, a lot more maintenance and responsibility. And if you don't understand any of this going in, what feels like your dream home can become a very expensive headache. It's a different way of living. So, one thing that makes Chatham Kent unique is the amount of country living we actually have here. You can be 10 minutes out of Chatham and feel like you're in a completely different world. And that's part of the appeal. You have more space, less traffic, and a lot more privacy. But living out in the country requires a different mindset. In town, you turn on the tap and water comes out. You flush the toilet and it disappears. And all of these things you don't really think about. But out in the country, you are responsible for those systems. So if something goes wrong with the well, maybe the pump, or something happens with your septic system or filtration system, you're actually on the hook and those become your problems. But that doesn't mean country living is bad by any means. It just means it's maybe not as passive as living in the city. The real cost of rural living. So let's talk a minute about the real costs that nobody really talks about. For instance, transportation. So if you're living in rural Chatham Kent, that likely means that you're driving more, which means more fuel, more wear and tear on your vehicle, and more time spent driving to where you need to go. I know it sounds simple, but most buyers underestimate it. So, the second cost I would think about is maintenance. Private septic systems do need to be pumped, well systems can fail, and filtration systems can need upkeep. And another big one would be heating. A lot of country properties in Chatham Kent don't have access to natural gas. So that means instead, you're likely heating with propane or oil, and those prices can really fluctuate depending on the season and where market prices are at. And depending on where you are, things like road conditions, drainage, snow removal, and yes, even internet can vary a lot more than people realize. But these shouldn't be surprise costs. They're really just part of the lifestyle. And if you go in prepared, then they're all manageable. The buying process can be completely different. So, this is where I caution a lot of buyers. Buying a property in the country just isn't the same as buying a house in town. So, a general home inspection condition just isn't enough. On a country property, I would say your conditions matter a lot more. For example, your septic. So, you want to make sure that you're getting your septic inspected properly. And you definitely want to use a qualified company to do that. You want to make sure that your septic system is working properly and that there's going to be no major issues going forward. So, you definitely want to make sure that you're testing the quality of the water. You also want to run a flow rate test and check the water pressure to make sure that this is going to be sufficient for everyday use. And you want to check zoning. This is actually a pretty big one. So, can you build the shop that you want? Are there any restrictions? Is part of the land in a flood zone? So, you also want to check any easements or right of ways on the property before going ahead with your purchase. A lot of these country homes were severed off from farmland, but still have right of ways for the farmers to access their crops. With a lot of properties in the country surrounded by farmland, this can be very important. So these are definitely the types of questions you want answered before you go ahead and remove your conditions. But please, don't let this scare you. So the good news is every one of these steps is completely manageable. As long as you have the right people and the right knowledge in your corner. That's where my job comes in. I want to make sure that the right professionals are involved before you are fully committed. The reality of rural living in Chatham-Kent can be an incredible lifestyle. More privacy, more space, less noise, and less stress. But remember, it does come with responsibility. So if you understand the systems and maintenance that come along with living in the country and you value your privacy and all the benefits, this could be one of the best decisions you've ever made. So if you plan on making a move in Chatham-Kent, or you just need some straightforward, simple real estate advice, you can reach out to me anytime via the link in this video description. And please remember to like this video and subscribe for more.